Good afternoon. I'm standing here at the National Gandhi Museum in New Delhi. The first thing I want to say is this, that of all the museums on Gandhi that we have in India, and there are in fact a great many of them, the city of Delhi itself has more than one museum. This museum is unquestionably the one with the richest collections pertaining to Gandhi anywhere in India or indeed in the world. Now, the very first question I want to raise in the mind of the viewer of this video is, what does it mean to have a museum on Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, better known to the world as Mahatma Gandhi, known to many in India as Bapu, particularly in his own lifetime, and anointed officially in India as the father of the nation. Now, in asking that question, I'm going to suggest that however good a museum may be, we have to think about the idea of a museum. We have to think about the epistemology of a museum. That is, what are the origins of the idea of a museum, and what is the theory of knowledge that is encompassed in the idea of a museum and which gives rise to the museum. Because I think anyone who has reflected on the life of Gandhi for a very long period of time and has read about his life will eventually come to the awareness that the most critical question is this a life that can even be contained in a museum? Right? So rich was the life of Gandhi, and having spent many days in this museum and the library of this museum, to which I will give a separate introduction in a separate video, I have become aware of a mass of material that I never knew really existed. So it's not only that Gandhi's life was inexhaustible, the literature on him and all the paraphernalia that has developed around him is also really inexhaustible. No better place to really be able to appreciate that or understand that than the National Gandhi Museum in Delhi. So let us begin at the ending. Let us begin where the story, in a manner of speaking, ended. But of course, a story like this never ends. Right? How can the story of the Mahatma ever end? Because, for one thing, as his assassination and as the aftermath of the next 75 years has shown, people like Mohandas Gandhi have to be continually assassinated. They have to be assassinated again and again, time after time, which suggests that the story of Gandhi did not end on 30th January 1948, some minutes past 5 p.m. when he was shot dead at Birla House. And indeed, Birla House is another of those museums that you find dedicated to the life, thought and work of Mohandas Gandhi. And it needs to be said before I turn our attention to the first artifact that we really want to look at over here, it needs to be said that Gandhi Smriti is very different from this museum, because this museum in that sense doesn't have a organic relationship, although it is the best museum in terms of the way Gandhi's life has been shown, and in terms of its collections and its ambitions and its aspirations. There is a fundamental difference, and that difference is that Birla House is the place where Gandhi used to stay. It was not the only place where he stayed when he would come to Delhi. In fact, he used to stay at what used to be called the Bhangi colony. We know that the word Bhangi is a kind of a pejorative word now, or at least it's a word used to refer to people who do the work of scavenging. But he used to stay there, but sometimes he would stay at Birla House, right? And that's where he was assassinated, and that road there outside that is now called 30th January Mark. That is January 30th Road, because that's the day that he was assassinated. But that place has an organic relationship, much in the way in which Mani Bhavan in Mumbai has an organic relationship, because it's the home which converted to a museum where Gandhi used to stay when he would come to Bombay. And in fact, it was on the terrace of Mani Bhavan that he was once arrested, right? So we can distinguish between the museums in that respect as well. But nevertheless, I'm saying that the National Gandhi Museum is a museum of extraordinary importance, of singular importance in its own way. So here we see the first artifact, which is for anyone who is like myself, really a Gandhi-bhakt. That is, I think of Gandhi in a language that is only available to those who have some notion of either faith or devotion or reverence, because for me, his life in that sense is utterly inexhaustible. As I was studying its director, Sri Annamalai, who in fact is now shooting this video, I was telling him a few days ago that being the director of the museum must be one of the best jobs in the world, and I wish I could actually just sleep here, because so rich is the repository, this repository of material, right, on Gandhi. Now, the first artifact of that massive repository are these objects here. So we have the blood-stained dhoti, the loincloth and shawl that were worn by Gandhi when he was assassinated approximately at 5:12 p.m., something like that, on 30th January 1948. How can one think of that moment? Right? And what did the assassination of Gandhi represent? This is not the occasion to get into that, but you can see that. You can see Gandhi's loincloth, and then you can see, so in fact there, that clock gives you the pocket watch that was with Gandhi, and when he fell, the stopwatch stopped, right? So we know the time, and this time indicates here 5:17, 5:18. It may have been a few minutes fast, I don't know, but I said 5:12 because I've heard different, times mentioned, the exact times. And then we have over here one of the bullets which took, the caption here says, one of the bullets which took away Babu from us. Right? Now these are, in a manner of speaking, really objects which have a different life, because for someone, as I said, who, and you don't have to necessarily be a Gandhi-bhakt, you just have to be someone who understood what Gandhi meant to his times, what his assassination meant, because when he was taken away from life on earth, it was as if everyone had lost a part of their life in the country. These objects, therefore, are meant to invoke in us some sense of the kind of figure he was, the kind of reverence with which he was treated in his own lifetime. But let us just take a quick stroll through just a small portion of this museum, which there's a photographic section, there's a children's section, there's an art gallery, there's a huge photographic exhibition or gallery, and there's also a room on the ground floor on which I will be doing a companion video, because that has an exhibition on Gandhi and his links to and relationship with Africans and African Americans. But let's just focus for the time being on a few things over here in this particular room here. So this room in particular. So as I said, we're really beginning with the end. In the end is the beginning, as T.S. Eliot had suggested in one of his great poems. And what we're seeing here is some of the ways in which people began to talk about the death of Mohandas Gandhi. So take this, for example, and this is what I meant when I said that this museum has an extraordinary collection, because I've never seen this. I've seen hundreds, thousands of probably pieces on Gandhi's assassination. So this is the Sunday Hindustan Standard magazine section, February 8th. So this was the first special issue that came out after Gandhi's assassination, and you can see that there is portion of this. This front page has been designed with some care, and there is a poem by Rabindranath Tagore, Man of Faith. Of course, Tagore had preceded Gandhi in his death, but Tagore had known Gandhi for a very long period of time, and indeed came to see him as the kind of person that India had once in a while, but in its long history often generated, beginning with the Buddha and Mahavir, and then going through the great bhakts, right? So, taking us through the life of the great medieval saints, people like Nanak and Kabir and Tulsidas, Surdas, Mirabai, and many others. And in some respects, you could say that Gandhi was also part of that tradition. He was the last of the great bhakts. But look at this, right? So we have a little piece here by Gandhi called The Birth of Satyagraha. And then here is Gandhi's plan for world peace. This is an article by H.N. Brailsford, an Englishman who had been writing on Gandhi for a very long period of time. And we have some extraordinary photographs, and here one sees Jawaharlal. This is, of course, the caption here tells you exactly this is the ashes of Gandhi being carried away, and the immersion of Gandhi's ashes at the Sangam. So this is some days, of course, after the assassination. IAF, that is the Indian Air Force planes dropping flowers on the ashes. There was, of course, extensive coverage in newspapers in Hindi, Gujarati, and Marathi, in every conceivable language that one can think of. It so happens by sheer coincidence, I was talking about how people like Gandhi have to be assassinated repeatedly. So here there is this cartoon, which I know a good deal about, because this cartoon was actually published in the Chicago Sun-Tribune. And this is a cartoon that was published after the assassination of Martin Luther King. And here Gandhi is seated there, and he says to King, "The odd thing about assassins, Dr. King, is that they think they've killed you." Right? So, you can't ever kill someone like Mohandas or Martin Luther King. There's spectre, and the spectre of Gandhi is everywhere. But here is again something I've never seen. Again from the Hindu Standard, this is page 4 of it, because you see that at the very top there, the soul of Asia speaks, and Gandhi is now being placed within a certain tradition. Here we have a painting, an oil painting on canvas by V.D. Chinchalkar. And once again you can see, so it doesn't take very long to surmise that Gandhi here is being placed within the tradition of Jesus and the Buddha. Here you see Jesus on the cross, the crucifixion, you see an image of Gandhi. This is from a different newspaper, and so on. So this is just that portion of the gallery where we see a testimonial to the manner in which India dealt with the aftermath of Gandhi's assassination. But I do want to turn my attention, we'll just briefly walk into another gallery and then I'll conclude there, but I want to turn my attention very briefly to this work there on the top. So there you see Gandhi in 3 different poses, but the artist has done something very interesting. And that is that the artist has taken 3 poses of Gandhi and then, in a manner of speaking, superimposed the 3 monkeys. Right? So we know that Gandhi used to keep the 3 monkeys by his side all the time. Speak no evil, right? Here on the left, see no evil in the middle, and hear no evil. Right? And evil here is not to be interpreted purely in a theological sense. You know, that because we have to then do the work of interpretation. What does it mean to say see no evil? Meaning that you try to also, let's do a little interpretation. You should also try to see the good within the person who strikes you as evil. Because the supposition throughout in Gandhi's life was precisely this, that we should never assume that the truth lies entirely on one's own side, that one is in complete possession of the truth. In fact, that was a form of what Gandhi would have called epistemological violence, to suppose that one's own view is always the totality of the view and the correct view, and there is no merit whatsoever in the view of the other. Right? Speaking no evil, of course, seems to be more self-evident to many people. That is, one shouldn't, and here it's not to be interpreted literally in the sense of don't use foul language, right? It's more in the sense because you may not use foul language, but if you are casting aspersions about a person, you're passing rumors about a person behind their back, right? Which do discredit to that person, and you're not using foul language, you are in fact speaking evil. So we still have to do the work of interpretation. The history of these 3 monkeys is extraordinarily interesting, but we can't get into that because we know that there is a temple in Nikko, Japan, where you can see the 3 monkeys on the top of the temple. And that is, as far as I am aware, the first known instance. I mean, some people have argued that 3 monkeys come from China. It's possible that they may have, that the idea of the 3 monkeys or that metaphor, that image may have moved from China to Japan. Many things did move from China to Japan, but as far as I'm aware, it is the temple in Nikko where we see the 3 monkeys. And here we have another representation of the 3 monkeys, a sculptural work, right, where we see these 3 monkeys. This gallery here, and I will spend a few minutes here and then conclude the video with that. With the caveat or the proviso that people shouldn't assume that this is the totality of the museum. This is a very small portion of it, but this gives a very good sense of the collections of the museum. And here we have a philatelic exhibition, or that is a philatelic tribute to Gandhi. Most countries in the world have issued postage stamps in honor of Gandhi. Today it may seem much less meaningful because the postage stamp itself is slowly becoming obsolete. There are people like my children and people of that generation who have never licked a stamp and put it on an envelope. So the idea of a postage stamp is almost entirely obsolete to the young generation, some of whom may be listening to this. But we have to understand that for close to 150 odd years, from the 1850s, 1840s, when the postage stamp first started in England, down to about 2000, 2010, the postage stamp was widely used and was one of the ways in which you could surmise how a country thought about not only its own leaders, its own significant events, but what did it seek to represent in other cultures. So the fact that Mohandas Gandhi appeared on the postage stamps of virtually every country in the world suggests that there is a different way of thinking about Gandhi as a world historical figure. India, of course, has produced dozens of them on many different occasions. So this, for example, here is a salt satyagraha. This is a special sheet that was produced here, and these are the first day covers. So we see different stamps. Here we see Gandhi, partly in the walking posture, and here, of course, that famous representation of him bending down, supposedly at Dandi. It didn't actually happen literally at Dandi, but that's another story to pick a clump of salt, as it were, right? And I have to say, I don't know if it's over here, it must be there, we can try to scrutinize it, but I was first introduced to Gandhi stamps, not only by the stamps that India had produced, but the United States had a series called Champions of Liberty. And there were 2 postage stamps on Gandhi in denominations of 4 cents and 8 cents. Okay, well, here we are, and here they are, all right? So 4 cents and 8 cents, and there were 2 great figures who were represented. One was Gandhi, and the other one was Simon Bolivar, the great liberator, of Latin America, of many countries that emerged in Latin America. This stamp actually here is a stamp produced by the United Nations, which is part of my own collection of stamps on Gandhi. But anyhow, so what I'm saying is that this might look, to somebody it might look a bit trivial, but what I'm suggesting is that taken in totality, it suggests, right, how we are to think of Gandhi as a world historical figure. This museum enables us to do that, but it also works with images, it works with artifacts, and we can look at a couple of artifacts here. So one of the most momentous occasions in Gandhi's life, indeed I would go so far as to say that his peace march through Noakhali, right, 18 months before his assassination, is one of the most epic moments in what is really in totality an epic life. There's an epic within an epic there, because this was an extraordinary march that he undertook through riot-ravaged Noakhali to try to bring solace to people, and it was a peace mission. And here, Sri Annamalai, the director, was kind enough to draw my attention to this. Here what we see, so if you look at photographs of Gandhi, this museum incidentally has 300 photographs in a special set, as it were, photographs of Noakhali, which were taken by, I think the photographer's name was Manoj Das, something like that, or Basu maybe. But anyhow, the museum has this extraordinary collection of photographs of Noakhali, and you see in many of them a Sikh, a Sardarji, a tall man, and here you see him at the back here, and he's carrying the bag. This is the bag that was carried. So this is that very object that you see in those photographs, and this is what makes the collections of this museum absolutely priceless and moving. And I conclude, therefore, with suggesting that I think a visit to this museum is something that should be undertaken by everyone. Think of it as a pilgrimage. To come to this museum is like part of the pilgrimage. Thank you.